everybody, it's Graham Coath with another My Music. It's Friday, it's the best day of the week, so why wouldn't you want to just stop working for a little bit, put everything down, and come and join myself as I talk to Greg Jarvis from the Flowers of Hell about music and all things like that. I'm sorry we're a little bit late this morning, by the way, and it's all the fault of a fast food restaurant, which Greg was trying to get his breakfast from. But of course, in this day and age, fast food actually means, well, you'll get it when you get it. All right. So that's why it's not anybody's fault here. We did all the right things. We were trying to be here on time at the right time. But there you go. Try harder, folks. When someone asks you for an order, get it out there. Okay, we're going to watch this video first, and then we'll come back after this. Greg, thanks for making it through Taco Bell Hell. Oh, sorry, we gave the game away.
Name them and shame them. Taco Bell Auckland, near Wyndham Street.
Yeah.
Horrible service, long delayed, and made this go out live a little late.
There you go. Listen, the Flowers of Hell, great name for a band or a collective. It's a wonderful juxtaposition because, you know, flowers, hell. Was that what you were going for there?
You know, it's just what it was around the year 2000, 2001. I used to hang out a lot at Alan McGee's Pop Tones night in London. And,
Okay.
you know, it was in the Notting Hill Arts Club. So it only holds about 150 people. But you'd have people from MC5 drop by, from the Pistols drop by, from Oasis, Catatonia. It became a real hangout kind of place. But every week, the bands just had boring names that he'd put on the club night. Everyone was following the Strokes kind of thing. And then I saw this one band, I can't even remember the name, but they had this powerful name. I was like, yeah, I want a powerful fucking name, not a weenie indie name. So yeah, so that's one of the factors. And then it's a Baudelaire thing, Les Fleurs de Mal, the flowers of badness kind of thing that sometimes gets translated as the flowers of hell. And then
there you go. So yeah, it was kind of a rebellion against the kind of singular name, something real cool type thing. Yeah, I get that. In terms of as a name though, do you ever get anyone look at it and go, well, you're heavy metal then?
Nah, that hasn't really been such a problem. I think the flowers kind of balances
it out.
Though definitely. You know, I mean, obviously, especially doing the type of music we do where it's quite orchestral and that, you know, suddenly when we started out in 2005, no one was playing churches. And now churches are really the best place we can play. But amazingly, we've played a good number of churches over the years, and none of them has ever had an issue with it. But at the same time, hell is not in the Bible. So that's, you know, good on them. Though that said, around the corner from Taco Bell Auckland, there's a hellfire preacher. I wanted to record him because he was going on about,
really?
You can't walk out of hell. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta go do this interview. I really wanted to record his real proper hellfire brimstone stuff.
Was he like the character in Little Nicky?
I haven't seen that. So
you haven't seen that. You haven't seen that film. Oh. You watch it afterwards, or just see if you can skim through and go for the clip of the preacher in there, because it's probably exactly the same.
Right? Yeah. No, a proper manic street preacher. That's
fantastic. Tell me about how you got this group of people together as a collective, because that's a lot of people you have there.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was just kind of friends who were around who were into the same type of music. And I'd written this one piece called Opt Out that's still a cornerstone of our live set. and I needed people to play it. I had the chance to do it live at a night in London, and it was to be a one-off night at Club AC30 in London. But we did it. It went great. And then, as we were loading out, everyone was like, yeah, let's do more of this. And so that became the core of the original band. And then a year later, I guess 2007, I moved home to Canada and kind of started a Canadian wing of it there. And so going back and forth, getting everyone on the recordings, and a few key people fly back and forth when we tour. But when we tour, it's only ever 6-7 people at most. But sometimes in London or sometimes in Toronto, even in Moscow, we've done bigger shows of about 10 people up to 14 people.
Have you always liked the kind of larger collective idea as opposed to?
No, the thing was, I don't think of it that way at all. To me,
No?
I started out playing in military marching bands in my teen years. So, to me, if we've got 16 people in the Flowers of Hell, it just seems normal to me. That's the instruments and, that variety of instruments I'm used to working with. And I always remember seeing the Pogues in '88, one of the best shows I ever saw when I was a young teenager. And, that's 8 people in the Pogues, yet each instrument is doing its own thing. I can't stand groups like the Polyphonic Spree where you've got 30 people on stage just for the sake of it, and 10 of them are playing a friggin' tambourine and another 10 are doing backing vocals. It's, if someone's on my stage, it's for a musical purpose.
Yeah, they've got to be there for a reason. They've got to be adding something into it. How does that impact the writing process? Because obviously you've got a lot of different parts there. Are you writing all of those parts, or are you providing, if you like, a substructure and then allowing people to improvise?
We write in many, many, many different ways. Many different ways. Sometimes I'll just write a core of a song and other people add their bits around it. Other times I'll be singing to people what I want them to play for their part of it. Other times we'll be improvising live off the floor in the studio. Sometimes we'll improvise something live and then tweak in a rehearsal and then go into the studio and do it. Sometimes I'll write the core of a thing, have everyone do their bits around it, and then I'll remove the core of the piece that I originally wrote. So then it is just what's been added to it. So there's a lot of different ways that we work it. There's no kind of fixed formula at all.
Listening to your music, there's an element in there where you can quite relax to this music, right? But it isn't spa music. Let's get that out of on the table right away. It's not spa music because it's. But what to explain to people? What do you think makes it different from spa music?
Well, I mean, with our latest piece in particular, Keshakhtaran, that's a meditation piece.
Yeah,
really, it's meditation music by real musicians who take drugs. And it's, it's not some wellness instructor who's bought an Enya synth and is banging a gong and telling you to breathe or some shit over top. Instead, this is, our meditation album really came out of the pandemic and being locked down and being able to meditate. And then, I'd listen to these Spotify meditation playlists and real fast going through them. It's all shit. And so I quickly realized that, okay, well, we're going to have to make our own. And, I've always been inspired by Lou Reed. He's inspired a lot of things we did, including this meditation album. Lou, towards the end of his life, he was doing an hour of Tai Chi a day, and he couldn't stand the frigging music. So he made his own. And that's really what we did with this was something that we can drift off into. And, the fact is most meditation music, it's all completely light, synth pad, Whereas, real therapy or real meditation, it's got heavy, dark moments in it. And so with what we're doing, it's got all the heaviness and darkness into the lightness. It's got the beauty around the darkness going through it all. And I think, again, it's real musicians making this stuff as opposed to just someone holding down an Enya synth they bought telling you to breathe.
Yeah. Well, I hope you didn't mind me asking that question, but I wanted to get that out there because
no, I'm glad you did.
I think that some people will, listen to like a few minutes and go, it's, but actually they need to listen on because there are very, very obvious reasons why this isn't spa music.
Oh yeah,
spa
no, it
music that
gets
you get
dark
on the
in
seat.
places and pulls you
Yeah.
on through it. You know?
Yeah, it's a journey. It's still got very definite light and shade, etc. in it, but also it's just, for me, it's some of the runs in there are incredibly human, right?
Yeah.
And that's what really makes it very different for me. It's just like, you know, listening to it as a vocalist, you've got runs that are like scales down, but then there's a note that goes off there, you know, and that for me is like, it's kind of like you're taking you somewhere on the path, but then over there, because life's like that, isn't it? Life is not perfect, you know.
Exactly.
And I think that's the main thing. I think the trouble is with a lot of those meditation kind of tapes, stroke panpipe rubbish, is that everything's perfection on it. Absolutely everything.
Oh, completely. And it's all got the same lovely reverb to it, and there's no dissonance.
No.
Yeah, you know, life has dissonance, and so it makes sense that suddenly a feedback squall should creep on up under a beautiful.
Yeah, you want to
Yeah,
you know, it's like that. That's brilliant. You know, that kind of thing's absolutely brilliant. And there's some fantastic playing in there as well. You know, there's elements of world music in there. There's elements of jazz in there. There's, you know, for anyone that loves their, you know, 70s prog, there's at times it kind of feels like the best of Yes as well. You know, it's fantastic, right?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff in there. I mean, really, it's not rooted in anything. It's just us locked down, each person doing their own layers separately to it. And then me going in and editing around. So you've got the jazz trained musicians in the group bringing in the jazz side, the classical trained ones bringing in the classical, the rockers of us bringing in the Velvet Underground and Spacemen 3 into it. And it just all goes into the mix.
Yeah. Is there a story that goes with the album as well? Is there you know,
no story to it.
No story to it. People bring their own story.
Organically unfolded, you know. Yeah. And so there's no story. It is whatever people pin on. It's like looking at an abstract painting. You know, there's no story in it, but you might take one from it.
Perhaps you should have a website where people can put their own story.
Yeah, actually, it's been interesting as people in the band have been telling me about their experiences listening to it. Yeah, there's a lot of deserts and caves and wolves. It's it's kind of amazing the way everyone does go off on their own journey with it, which is the whole point of the piece. I mean, Keshakhtaran, the name, I found it halfway through working on it. I found it on the internet, and it's a Urban Dictionary term for seeking nirvana through meditation to sound, especially when you're stoned. So I thought that's the name right there. And the fact that Keshakhtaran sounds like some imaginary fictional land, I thought that's the perfect name, because really it's meant to be a kind of land that only exists in the ears. Yeah. And that's what Keshakhtaran is. And, you know, you go on a journey to Keshakhtaran and you come back with some souvenirs, hopefully.
I think we should get the domain name and you know, stick it up there. And I think we should just literally have a thing where people can write their own stories and put them up there against it. I think that'd be lovely.
It's a great idea, actually.
Yeah, you can turn it into into a kind of living piece where people can kind of respond to it and show people that, you know, it's fine. You don't have to have an interpretation behind every piece of music that's out there.
Exactly.
Which is a good thing. And of course, at the same time, you're releasing a piece of an album, which is, you know, reflections of other people's songs. What made you choose to do that?
Well, so that we originally did in 2012. Our first super abstract album we did was in 2010, our third album.
Yeah.
And its working title was Business Suicide, because we had a lot of press around that point, NME, Rolling Stone, all that. But, you know, the whole point of this band is to make the music we want to hear. And at that point, we were into the idea of doing a 46-minute song that had no rhythm and no lyrics and no repetition. And that's what we did. And so realizing that we were going deeper into abstraction at that point, I thought, okay, well, let's do an EP of some covers just to leave a signpost behind so people can find us as we do stuff that's inevitably going to be more and more obscure than things with lyrics.
Yeah.
And the songs we started doing for this EP, we started with the Lou Reed theme to it. And then the songs were just coming out good. So we expanded the whole thing into a full album. And that came out in 2012. It was called Odes. And it actually got to Lou Reed, and Lou loved the thing, which was really, it meant more to me than a Grammy, hearing Lou not just only loving my covers album, but loving us doing his songs on it. Yeah. And loving doing a Dylan song on it as well, where a friend of mine, she did the vocal on it sounding like Nico, right? And so I couldn't believe that he was actually into it, but really into it. He went on for about 10 minutes on the radio about it, playing 3 songs. And then sadly, he was dead within the next 12 months after that. 6 months after that, he had his liver transplant. And then 6 months after that, he was gone, unfortunately. But so I'm glad that he heard us and gave us that praise. And it meant a lot to us.
It's, for me, the last song on there is Memories of Childhood, because one of the only albums my parents ever had in the car was the Carpenters' greatest hits.
Wow.
But and that song's such an interesting song, Calling Occupants, because when you listen to the rest of when you put on, if anyone's got it, the Carpenters' greatest hits, when you listen to the rest of the album, when that song comes on, it's a bit of a shocker because it doesn't really fit.
Well, it's not like anything else the Carpenters ever did.
It was like there's the Carpenters, and then whoa, what were they doing that day? That's what you want to know.
Well, this is the thing, and I mean, it's an amazing story behind Calling Occupants of Interplanetary Craft. It's actually originally by a Toronto band, Klaatu, who they didn't appear on their album sleeves in the early 70s, and there was a rumor that went around America that they were the Beatles, right? And so everyone bought the record, and Calling Occupants was this standout prog rock track on it. And it's got like about 7 key changes in it. It's an incredibly musically complex song to do. And they even got lucky that their producer worked with Rush and had been off in London and managed to use an extra chunk of an orchestra session to do part of Calling Occupants there, something that they could never have afforded. So that's in there. And what it was Klaatu based the song, some of the lyrics of the songs, they're actually based on a message that the International Flying Saucer Society tried to telepath into outer space in the 1950s. They had members all over the world, even in the Soviet Union, and they'd sent them all this paragraph and this instruction that on this date, at the correct time for your time zone, you are to read this and think it. And the idea was that if all these people on Earth all at once thought this message, calling occupants of interplanetary craft, please come in peace, we beseech you. If they all thought this at once, the aliens might be able to pick up on the telekinetic thing. So it's based on an amazing story. And what it is that the Carpenters in the late 70s, they were struggling for hits. Richard was spiraling out into a few bad habits. Somehow it sounded like a great idea. Karen, we've got to record this. Listen to this. This is fantastic, Karen. Okay, Richard. And then they did it. And amazingly, they had a hit with it. I mean, when you look at prog rock of the 70s, there's really only Bohemian Rhapsody, Calling Occupants, and Dark Side of
were hits.
The genre. That's all this entire genre that now has magazines dedicated to it.
Because it was an album based genre. It was people were selling albums, but I guess Brick in the Wall by Pink Floyd was a hit as well. But very rare did a hit come out of it. It was pretty much album sales all the way through.
Completely.
But something like that, as you say, multi-layered, and it takes a great vocalist to do it. And you had a great vocalist on that track as well.
Actually, it's a funny story. I love her vocals on it. And though I can't reveal her name because she really did not like her vocals on it. So she used a pseudonym for the album. And I was saying to her, look, no, this is like really good. And, you know, a lot of people are going to hear this and you're going to want your name on it. And I loved it because it was one of the songs that Lou Reed loved and Lou Reed played on his radio show. And so I was so happy to go back to her and say, see, look, Lou Reed dug your vocal on it. And I still to this day, I respect her because she replied back going, I don't care if Lou Reed likes it. I don't like my vocal.
Fantastic.
But, you know, I think she's in a minority. It's one of those things, when someone can sing as good as that, they do have that level of perfectionism, and that sometimes holds those people back. But I'm happy that we came to the compromise where she let me release it in the end, just not using her real name.
Do you know what? One day she'll turn around and go, actually, I quite enjoyed it.
I keep waiting for that, but 10 years on, no.
It just still hasn't happened yet.
Like I asked her, okay, so now it's coming out on LP for Record Store Day 10 years later in deluxe packaging. Do you want your name on it now? She's like, no.
Oh, well, wait, you know, that maintains the kind of mystique.
You know, and I completely respect her every time she sticks to her guns on that.
That's fantastic. The other one on there that surprised me in the way that you did it, but it was joyous that you did, was Atmosphere, because that is such a unique song in so many ways, don't you think? It's just I'm glad in the way that you did it, because I think if you'd have put a male voice on that, trying to get anywhere near Ian Curtis would have been
exactly, and honestly,
so difficult.
Some songs, just the way they're written, work better for a female voice. I think with that one, we really discovered that, oh wow, this actually works well with a female voice rather than a male voice singing it.
Yeah,
and it's actually the same vocalist as is on Calling Occupants.
Yeah.
But she's happy with her vocals on Atmosphere. And
there you go. Yeah, you go. You can't convince her to get her name out for the Atmosphere one. Oh, look.
It's not really the same voice you're hearing a few tracks later.
Yeah, you're giving it away now.
No, Atmosphere was a song we used to play at some of our early rehearsals. And, it's always been a kind of cornerstone of what I wanted to do musically, where it's just two chords and just that basic thump of a drum. There's a lot of similarities between Atmosphere and Heroin by the Velvet Underground. Yeah. And of course, Joy Division were listening to the Velvets. And I think somehow in our version of Atmosphere, we inadvertently brought the Velvet stuff that's inside the song out that you can't so much hear on the Joy Division version.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's actually, in a way, it's quite a hard song to play, because it's so simple. You've got to get it right. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I'd agree with that. And to be honest, we weren't going to do it. It was more just, it was at the last session we did for the album. It was just, okay, let's give it a try, because we've done in rehearsals a few times. And then it just instantly came out the way it came out. Like, we were just working that out in the studio as we went. I think we played it once before we did the take that's on the album. And it's live in the studio, that one. And what I didn't know was there a producer, my co-producer on that record, Peter J. Moore, who's a bit of a living legend. He's, got a Grammy for his work on the Basement Tapes with Dylan and the band, and he did the Cowboy Junkies' famous Trinity Sessions album as the producer.
Which is fantastic.
I didn't know that he'd been a massive Joy Division fan when he was young, and he'd had a ticket. Joy Division, they were meant to start their North American tour in Toronto because it was easier to get through U.S. immigration. And then, of course, Ian Curtis hung himself on the eve before the tour started. But yeah, the guy behind the console when we were playing that, he'd had a ticket for the Joy Division Toronto show that never happened, right? And he was telling me later as we were doing the mix that around that point in his life, he'd kind of had Ian Curtis's lyrics in his head all the time, walking around in that. And he really loved it. And he didn't know we were going to do it till we did it. So yeah, it was quite a special one.
Yeah, you seem to have a natural ability to kind of draw people in a quite spiritual way to what you're doing. Would you say that's true?
I don't know. It just happens when we do it.
It's just accident.
It just happens when we do it. I think somehow it's just being lucky enough to have been in music a long time and being able to have like-minded people around me a lot.
Yeah. Is there anybody that you haven't worked with yet that you'd love to?
I always think John Cale.
Oh, right.
John Cale and Brian Eno, Though somehow I think both are so eccentric and so deep, far down their path now. I don't feel it would be collaborative, so I don't feel there's much point to it.
Yeah.
But I'd still like the experience of it just for what I'd learn off them, sitting next to them, working on something.
Yeah.
Even if I feel that my contribution wouldn't be, able to really fully collaborate, I'd really love what I'd learned working with either of them.
Well, I suppose it depends. Maybe you'd get lucky and it would be a situation like Eno had with Byrne, where he'd written a whole load of songs, but he wasn't happy with them. And then Byrne went, well, actually, you've written a load of songs. You just don't know it yet. Maybe it'd be that, maybe you could say, look, give me your off casts, and then I'll see what I can do.
Can you imagine how much throwaway stuff Eno must have from all these years?
Mad.
You hear about Prince's vault. What's in Eno's vault?
Yeah.
Especially when it's ambient stuff that, is frankly easy to twiddle and have it go on for hours. And he's, this generative music pioneer. So he's probably got some composition that goes on for a year that's just sitting around somewhere, right? That's,
If you look at his Amazon account, it's just like hard disk after hard disk. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. He's
got a whole room in his house which you can't actually get in. It's just one big mega computer, which is storing it all. He's probably got his own cloud, has he? Maybe he's got that Eno cloud. Where all of this stuff exists. We'll probably all discover it one day. He'll probably release it and go, here's my cloud. You can now go and, it's a bit like ChatGPT, but for music. You can just go and, talk to it and it will bring you stuff.
Yeah, he's probably working on it now. I think one other person I've been interested in working with, even though I don't listen to her music that much, is Lady Gaga. She's a synesthete. So like me, she sees sound. And I'd like to see what it's like if somebody who sees sound working from my genre collaborates with someone from her genre who also sees sound. What are the conversations going to be like in the studio? And what will be the sonic textures that come on out of that?
Yeah, no, interesting. There's quite a few out there, aren't there? We've had Christian Hirsch on here, and she has the same ability. Yeah. So it'd be, as I say, I think that would be interesting. Yeah, I think anybody that I don't know if you've ever read Tori Amos's book, but she absolutely feels that she just channels what's already there, and it's she picks up on music that's around her. She has to put herself into a position. So I think anybody like that, be interesting to be around them in that creative process.
Well, exactly. And there's one person I've collaborated with, John Mark Lapham. He was in this great British band in the 2000s, the Earlies. He did one of my favorite albums of the 2000s. These were the Earlies. And now he's got this excellent group, Old Fired. He's in this kind of super group, mine with Rishi Dhir from Elephant Stone and One of the Horrors, and Alex, the singer of the Black Angels, and that. And I'd gone down to Abilene, Texas some years ago to work on some music with him. And really what happened was we just kind of spent 3 days hanging out, talking, going to record stores and then going to bars and just talking and then playing music for each other. And then the collaboration was more just, he did his thing, sent it to me. I added my thing to it, sent it back to him. He tweaked his thing. I tweaked my thing. And the real essence, the collaboration had come from those 3 days of us just hanging out talking about music.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think we need to see more of that again. It's one of the reasons why I'm really pleased to see vinyl making a comeback, because the amount of hours I spent finding musicians in record shops.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I think it's important. Where does the conversation start? I mean, in the work that I do in social media, I'm always looking for that, because I think it's something that a lot of people in the attempt to make social media content forget, which is the conversation, the dialogue. And where does that dialogue start? And we're all kind of busy trying to chase down the relationship too quickly in a way these days. And I for me, I say to people when they're looking at posting stuff, I say, before you post anything, go and comment on somebody else. Go and start a conversation with somebody.
Well, it is called social media, it's
right. It's not called preach the hell out of this platform to everybody else and hope that that they want to listen to you. It's called social media.
Some of it, Twitter in particular, just reminds me of that Bob Dylan song about all the people shouting and nobody listening.
Yeah. I've had some great conversations with people on Twitter, as I have.
And that's the thing. Then suddenly you have a conversation. You're like, oh yeah, I remember. That's what this is. I'll never forget. Actually, with the Odes album, the covers album, our version of Mr. Tambourine Man, we really based it on Melanie Safka. And Melanie, she's this great 60s folk singer. She played Woodstock and sold 80 million albums. And the record she put out a couple years ago called "Ever Since You Never Heard of Me."
That's a great title, isn't it?
She's been so forgotten, yet just an amazing, amazing voice. Fortunately, Miley Cyrus is actually a fan of Melanie's and has been trying to turn a whole new generation on to the glory of Melanie. And I've been a massive fan, and to me, she was always just this voice from my turntable. I've never even thought of her as being a living person because I'd never seen an interview she'd done or anything like that. And then I was going to bed stoned one night. I had the Mr. Tambourine Man on. I thought, I wonder if Melanie's on social media. And I found her on Twitter and I messaged her. And then next morning I had a reply and we had a Twitter conversation and we're setting things up, and she was into having us to be her backing band if I could get her a date in Toronto. And so we were working on that for a bit, but it didn't come off. I ended up meeting her in person a couple of times. And so, yeah, that just reminds me of the power of what it's all about, really.
Yeah, I think if you can use it for connectivity, it's great. I think there's still too many gatekeepers in the music industry for too many people, which is a shame. It annoys me when I'm speaking to an artist and an artist goes, yeah, I'm absolutely down for a conversation. I really want to have a conversation about this, because I don't get to do good interviews with people that don't ask me, what's your favorite biscuit? And then their management go, no.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? What have you got to lose? What have people got to lose by putting out a conversation out there? That's a dig at all of you management that stand in the way of good conversations, by the way. Because your artists need it. Why just put your artists onto shows where all they're going to get asked is what their favorite biscuit is? Why? That does not let anybody get to know the artist.
Yeah. And
ultimately it stops people from getting to know the music. Because that's what all of this is all about, really, isn't it? I think, why do we sort of gravitate towards perhaps giving something a listen to in the first place? Is because there's an intrigue behind the person. You think that person's really interesting. And
I think this is one of the problems now with 60,000 tracks a day going up on Spotify. The same amount of music that sits in a small record store every day is now getting uploaded fresh to Spotify. And I think it makes it so hard for people to latch onto the music when they don't know the artist behind the music.
Yeah.
They don't know where that person is coming from. You mentioned the Carpenters earlier, and that's a classic example of a band that was all dismissed by music fans as light MOR AM stuff. And then after Karen Carpenter died of anorexia, suddenly everyone listened to that knowing where she was coming from and hearing the desperation and the soul and the depth of feeling in her voice. And then they got critically reevaluated after people learned where she was coming from. They could hear the music differently.
Yeah, no, and that's important, you know, and people need to build those kind of emotional bridges with the people that they're listening to. I think that's part and parcel of it. That's what makes music really quite so special. Listen, Greg, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thanks once again to Taco Bell for
Yes, sir. I didn't know this was going out live either. Otherwise, I would have cracked the whip even more than I already was.
But there you go. If you're in that area and you're still queuing for your Taco Bell, there is hope. Greg managed to get here in the end. So there you go. And look, what we do need to know was the food good in the end when you actually got it?
Now, this is the thing, actually, is I've discovered Taco Bell is hugely different in different countries. In Poland, they used to make it with cabbage and an item instead of cheddar, right? You know, in England, it was horrible. They shut after a couple of years. I had some in Chile. It was pretty horrible. But New Zealand Taco Bell is actually good. The tacos are thicker, fatter than you have anywhere else. It was actually it was worth the wait in the end. It's actually been the best Taco Bell I've had anywhere. So
there you go. You see, Taco, saving grace. You made a fantastic taco, and that's really all that counts. You know, I can wait, you know, but it's important that Greg gets his favorite taco. If you've enjoyed this, please share it. Where can people get hold of the Flowers of Hell music, Greg?
Well, we always like Bandcamp because I'm traveling for the next couple months. I guess if you want the physical thing, well, first off is Odes, our covers album, is at Record Store Day in the UK, and then it'll be available on import in shops elsewhere 2 weeks after that. And the rest is just digital for the moment, but though in 3.5 months, we'll be opening the store again. But I'm definitely not someone who's spending their entire life running a mail order business. That's never been a goal of mine, never is going to be a goal of mine.
Oh, there you go. So check it out. Check out Bandcamp. Download it if you want to pay a bit of money. That would be good. But as he said, Odes will be out in record stores. Go and pester the record store now to put it in stock if they haven't already got it in stock, because that would be great. Thanks for joining me, Greg. Lovely to meet you.
Thanks for a great interview. I really enjoyed that. It was, as you say, it was a conversation.
You know? Yeah, we need more of that.
Absolutely.
This has been my music. Do subscribe to this if you've enjoyed it. Do share it with your friends. Not for me, but for the musicians. They really need it. I don't. So there we go. Bye for now.
Take care.